My NDE revealed secrets that Allah keeps hidden, and what I saw changed everything. You might think that Muslim faith is unshakable, but my experience almost made me lose everything. From an early age, my life was shaped by the Muslim faith. I grew up in a devout family in Chicago, where religion was not just a practice, but an intrinsic part of our identity. My parents, immigrants from the Middle East, worked hard to ensure that my siblings and I received a solid education and a promising future, never straying from the teachings of Islam. The mosque was our second home, and daily prayers were a sacred ritual that connected us to Allah and our community. Over the years, I excelled academically and, after university, ventured into the business world. With determination and hard work, I built a successful career as an entrepreneur. My company grew rapidly, and soon I was living the American dream: luxury cars, a huge house, and all the symbols of prosperity that society values. My family and the local Muslim community saw me as a success story, a role model to follow. However, despite all my material prosperity, something was missing. I felt a profound emptiness, a spiritual poverty that could not be filled with money or possessions. My faith, once strong and unwavering, began to weaken. The prayers that used to bring me peace now seemed like mere formalities. I attended the mosque regularly, but the connection with Allah that I cherished so much felt increasingly distant. It was as if I was playing a role, a soulless routine. This emptiness gnawed at me internally. During social events, when my family and friends praised my prosperity and success, I would smile and thank them. But inside, a constant struggle tormented me. I repeatedly asked myself, what is missing? My life seemed perfect on the outside, but inside, it was falling apart. I felt like a ship adrift, without direction or purpose. The nights were the worst, lying in bed, surrounded by luxury, but without peace of mind. I reflected on my life. I recalled the teachings of the Quran, the words of wisdom my parents and imams had imparted over the years. Where was the deep connection I used to feel? Where was the serenity that faith provided me? I sought answers in self-help books, attended motivational seminars, and even consulted therapists. But nothing seemed to fill the void. It was as if my soul was crying out for something I couldn't identify. Each day, the internal struggle intensified, and I felt increasingly lost. It was in this state of restlessness that I continued my journey, trying to balance my successful professional life with a spiritual quest that seemed increasingly desperate. Little did I know that a transformative event was about to occur, something that would change my life forever and reveal secrets that Allah keeps hidden. An experience that would lead me to question everything I thought I knew about faith, success, and the true purpose of life. That day began like any other, but it was about to become the most significant of my life. I had an important meeting scheduled for the afternoon, and as usual, I left home in a hurry, trying to avoid Chicago's chaotic traffic. I felt anxious, but it wasn't just the meeting that occupied my mind. The spiritual emptiness that had been tormenting me for months seemed more intense than ever. As I drove, my thoughts wandered between work challenges and the incessant search for deeper meaning. Then, at a busy intersection, everything changed. A car ran a red light and collided violently with mine. The impact was devastating. I remember hearing the sound of metal twisting, glass shattering, and then absolute silence. My body was thrown against the steering wheel, and everything around me began to darken. I felt intense pain, and then nothing. When I regained consciousness, I was no longer in the car. I was floating above the accident scene, observing everything from a surreal perspective. I saw my inert body inside the car, paramedics working frantically to save me, and people around, some in shock, others trying to help. The sensation of being out of my body was both strange and calming. There was no pain, only a deep peace and a clarity of thought I had never experienced before. As I floated, I began to feel a calm yet powerful presence beside me. It was as if an invisible force was guiding me, I looked around and saw spiritual figures that seemed familiar, yet distant. Their forms were indistinct, but they emanated an energy of love and compassion that enveloped me completely. One of them stood out and, without words, beckoned me to follow. I was taken through a tunnel of light, an experience that transcends any earthly description. The light was bright but not blinding, and it emanated a sense of welcome and safety. At the end of the tunnel, the darkness opened to reveal a vision that would change my life forever. I saw a vast field where souls were weighed by their actions. It was a clear vision of divine justice, where every action, no matter how small, carried weight and consequence. I saw people I knew, some whom I regarded as models of faith, being judged not only for their actions, but for the intentions behind them. I understood that faith without love and compassion was empty, and that many were spiritually lost, trapped in meaningless dogmas and rituals. A voice, which seemed to come from within me and at the same time from a greater presence, told me I needed to see this. Allah was showing me a reality beyond human understanding, a truth I needed to comprehend. I realized that my life of material success had not brought me the true spiritual healing I so desperately sought. The presence told me it wasn't too late to change, but it would be a difficult path, full of challenges and trials. Suddenly, I felt a strong pull, as if being sucked back into my body. I awoke in the hospital, surrounded by doctors and nurses. My heart had stopped for a few minutes, but they managed to revive me. As I regained consciousness, the experience I had during those minutes of clinical death was etched in my mind with remarkable clarity. I knew my life would never be the same. The secrets Allah revealed to me during my near-death experience would change everything, and I was determined to follow the new path shown to me, no matter how difficult it might be. Waking up in the hospital felt like being reborn into a world that, although familiar, seemed to have acquired new dimensions. The fluorescent lights, the smell of antiseptic, the sound of heart monitors, all were there, but I was a different person. The near-death experience, NDE, had left an indelible mark on my soul, and the vision I had of divine justice hovered over my thoughts like a revelation that could not be ignored. During those brief minutes between life and death, Allah showed me a reality that transcended human understanding. It was a place where souls were weighed by their actions, and every detail of their lives was examined not just for what they did, but for the intentions behind each act. The clarity of this vision was overwhelming. I saw people I knew, some I'd always considered righteous and pious, being judged for their true motivations. It wasn't about following dogmas or rituals, but about living with love, compassion, and sincerity. This revelation hit me like a lightning bolt. I understood that faith without love and compassion is empty, a mere shell of practices without true meaning. Many, I realized, were spiritually lost, trapped in a routine of devotion that did not touch their hearts. I myself, despite my material success and facade of faith, was one of these. My life, centered on achievements and tangible goods, had not brought me the true spiritual healing I so desperately sought. My heart was burdened with pride and vanity, which distanced me from the true essence of Islam. The presence that guided me during the NDE told me it was not too late to change, but the path would be arduous. This new awareness, though illuminating, brought with it a weight of responsibility. I knew I had to reshape my life, redefine my priorities, and seek a deeper and more authentic connection with Allah. But how to do this in a world that values material success so highly? Awake in the hospital, surrounded by doctors and nurses relieved by my recovery, I began to reflect on the steps I needed to take. I knew my transformation would require courage to confront not only my own fears and insecurities, but also the resistance and misunderstanding of those around me. The divine revelation I received compelled me to act, to share this new vision with others who, like me, might be seeking deeper meaning in their lives. Over time, as I physically recovered, I began to explore this new spiritual dimension. I read the Quran with renewed eyes, seeking not just to understand its words, but to live them fully. I meditated on love, compassion, and the true purpose of life, realizing that my mission now was to integrate these qualities into every aspect of my existence. The revelation that Allah granted me during my NDE was not just a glimpse of the beyond, but a call to action. It was an invitation to transform my life and potentially help others find the same clarity and spiritual peace. I knew the path ahead would be challenging, facing criticism and skepticism, but the internal conviction I felt was stronger than any doubt or fear. I was determined to follow this new path, hoping that in doing so, I could finally find the true peace and purpose I had always sought. Waking up in the hospital was just the beginning of an internal journey that would challenge everything I believed to be true. As my body recovered from the accident, my mind and spirit were in turmoil. The near-death experience and the revelations I received had opened a chasm between who I was and who I needed to become. This internal conflict was deep and unsettling. Returning home, surrounded by all the symbols of success I had accumulated, made me realize how empty my life truly was. Every luxury item, every award, and business recognition that once filled me with pride now seemed like mere distractions from a greater purpose I had neglected. The vision of divine justice I witnessed during my NDE no longer allowed me to ignore this truth. I began to question all my previous beliefs. The faith I once practiced mechanically started to transform into something more alive and demanding. I began to see that my materialistic focus, which had consumed so much of my energy and time, was a waste if it wasn't aligned with a deeper spiritual purpose. This led me to a state of intense introspection, where I needed to reconcile my worldly success with the new truths Allah had shown me. The community expected me to continue being the successful businessman I had always been. They saw my recovery as a miracle, a sign that I should move forward with even more determination. However, within me, the spiritual transformation was underway. The new understanding of love, compassion, and purpose consumed me. I knew I needed to confront my own fears and the potential rejection from the community to follow the new path that had been revealed to me. This internal conflict was not easy to resolve. I spent sleepless nights seeking guidance in prayers and meditations. I avidly read about the experiences of others who had undergone similar spiritual transformations, trying to find a map for my own journey. However, each story was unique, and I realized I needed to find my own path, one that respected my experiences and the new vision I had received. Gradually, I began to speak openly about my NDE and the spiritual revelations it brought. For many, my words were unsettling. I was questioning traditions and practices that had been accepted without question for generations. Religious leaders criticized me, arguing that my experience was merely an illusion, a misinterpretation of Islamic teachings. Friends and family, who once saw me as a success story, began to distance themselves, worried about what they considered a loss of faith. Despite these difficulties, my internal conviction grew stronger every day. The understanding that true faith resides in love and compassion, not rigid traditions, gave me the courage to continue. I knew I needed to follow this new path, even if it meant facing rejection from those who once supported me. My mission now was to find a way to integrate the spiritual revelations into my daily life, helping others who also sought deeper meaning in their lives. The internal conflict was just the beginning of a broader transformation that would lead me to redefine my purpose and find a new community that shared these renewed values. This journey would be filled with challenges, but also with discoveries and personal growth as I learned to live according to the truth that Allah had revealed to me. As I began to share my near-death experience, NDE, and the revelations it brought, I quickly encountered the harsh reality of rejection. The Muslim community to which I belonged, which once welcomed and celebrated my material success, now looked at me with distrust and skepticism. My new ideas, which emphasized love, compassion, and a more personal interpretation of faith, were seen as threats to the status quo. Initially, I tried to approach the subject carefully, sharing my experiences in small discussion groups at the mosque. I hoped that my sincerity and the depth of the transformation I had undergone would be enough to open hearts and minds. However, the reaction was largely negative. Many of the religious leaders publicly criticized me, accusing me of straying from the traditional teachings of Islam. To them, my experience was seen as an illusion, or, worse, heresy. Friends who once respected me began to distance themselves. Some confronted me directly, expressing concern that I was losing my faith. Others simply cut off contact, unable to reconcile the image of the successful and devout businessman with the man who now questioned religious fundamentals. My family, though loving, was also divided. My parents were worried about the social and religious repercussions of my new convictions, fearing that I was straying from the values they held dear. Despite the emotional pain this rejection caused, my inner conviction continued to grow. The transformative experience I had could not be ignored or denied. I knew that the revelations Allah had granted me were true, and that my mission now was to help others who also felt a spiritual void, even if it meant facing rejection from my community of origin. Amidst this turmoil, I found a small spiritual community that shared similar values. These were people from diverse religious backgrounds, all seeking a deeper connection with the divine beyond traditional dogmas. Together, we began to organize meetings to discuss love and compassion as the true pillars of faith. These meetings, though modest, gave me hope and renewed my determination to move forward. The initial rejection from the Muslim community was painful, but did not prevent me from continuing my spiritual journey. On the contrary, it strengthened my resolve to live according to the truth I had discovered. Gradually, some people began to approach me, curious about my experience and open to exploring new perspectives on faith. This small but growing group of supporters encouraged me to continue sharing my message. Over time, my transformation began to attract people who also felt the spiritual void I had experienced. I initiated community projects aimed at reconciliation between different faiths, promoting interfaith dialogue and mutual understanding. These initiatives, though challenging, were rewarding as they allowed me to see the positive impact my new mission was having on people's lives. Thus, even in the face of rejection and criticism, I found a path that brought me peace and purpose. I learned that true faith is not about blindly following traditions, but about living with love and compassion, guided by an authentic connection with the divine. This journey, though solitary at first, began to flourish into a community of like-minded souls, all seeking the same spiritual truth. If you felt touched by this journey of spiritual transformation and the search for a deeper purpose, don't forget to leave a like. Your interaction is crucial for us to continue bringing stories that inspire and challenge our perceptions. Share your thoughts and reflections in the comments. I would love to know how this narrative resonated with you and what insights you gained from it. If you haven't subscribed yet, join our community by clicking the subscribe button. That way, you won't miss any chapters of this and other stories that explore faith, spirituality, and the power of transformative experiences. Your participation is essential to keep this enriching exchange going.